have a question. It's been on my mind for a while, and I would love to know your answer. Are we responsible for other people's happiness? It's a very valid question. Put your answer down below in the comments. I want to know. My answer is no, we are not responsible for other people's happiness. And I have felt that way for a very, very long time. But what I realized is that if I wasn't responsible for someone's happiness, would I be responsible for their negative emotions? Let me explain. I certainly don't think that I'm responsible for other people's happiness. Although when we're married, have friends, kids, we want to make sure that we're liked, so we do things to make them happy. And I have an example with my kids. Once I realized that I'm not responsible for other people's feelings, happiness being one of those feelings, they were arguing in the back of the car, and I tried to get involved because you shouldn't argue, right? And so once I started to get involved, I turned around and said to myself, I'm not responsible for their happiness. Let them figure it out. And 2 seconds later, they figured it out, and then they went about their business. So I realized I can't be responsible for other people's happiness. I can't be responsible for my husband's happiness. I can't be responsible for my mother's happiness. I'm not responsible for my mother-in-law's happiness, or my sister-in-law, or my friends, or my children. The only person that I am responsible for is myself, for my own happiness. And what I have learned is that if I don't fill my own bucket up with what makes me happy, then I look to other people to make me happy because I'm not happy with myself. But it's ultimately my responsibility to make sure that I do things that make me happy. And if you don't have things that make you happy, then you might want to find some. Or if you no longer know what makes you happy, that's something for you to figure out as well. Sit with, think about, write down the things that used to make you happy. Write down things that you think that you would enjoy doing, and then start doing a few of those things, because you're responsible for your happiness. And when your bucket is full, then you're not looking to anybody else to make you happy. When I was struggling being a first-time mom with 2 young kids, I almost looked to my children to make me happy because I thought I should be enjoying this. Why aren't I enjoying this? Kids, you're not making me happy. But what I realized is that I wasn't doing any of those activities or things that I used to do that really made me happy, that really brought me joy. And you can still do those things in this next phase of your life, or you find new things that make you happy. Of course, reading to my kids at night didn't make me happy when they were babies. All I wanted to do was get out of the room because I needed time for myself. But as they get older, they go and play. They give me time by myself, and now I enjoy reading to them at night. So as you evolve and you change, you find other things that make you happy. You can continue to do some of those old things that made you happy. But my point is that you have to fill up your own bucket because you're responsible for your happiness. And if you're not filling up your own bucket and you're not happy, sometimes we look to other people to fill that void, and it's not their responsibility. So let me throw in another curveball at you. If we're not responsible for other people's happiness and we're only responsible for our own, we're also not responsible for people's joy or excitement or any of those other upbeat emotions. But the twister is, are we responsible for someone's negative emotions? Are we responsible for someone's anger or someone's sadness or someone's anxiety or someone's depression, someone's boredom? Are we responsible for our kids' boredom? I saw a great meme once, and it had back in the day when kids were bored, that's when we created musicians and artists and creative minds. Because now sometimes we just think that they have to be entertained constantly, so they're not able to. Boredom is good for kids. Sometimes we parents, and I'm accused of being one of those, feel like we have to entertain our kids constantly. We're not responsible for their boredom. Let them be bored. It's only an emotion. It's okay. It's not a bad emotion. Now, let's just hypothetically say that our husband is mad or angry. For instance, I got a scratch on my car. I didn't do anything. You know, we all get scratches and dents in our car all the time, parking in the parking lots that they have now. And he was mad. He was angry. And back before I realized I'm not responsible for other people's emotions, my old self would have taken that on as, oh my gosh, he must think that I'm a horrible driver. He must think that I can't park. Why are you mad at me? Why are you yelling? I didn't do anything wrong. I was taking on his frustration. I was taking on his anger as I did something wrong. But if we were to separate that and go back to our original question of, are we responsible for someone's happiness? No. If we're not responsible for someone's happiness, then are we responsible for their anger? Well, logically, no. You're allowed to be angry that there's a scratch on the car. It's going to cost money. It's going to take time. It's going to take coordination of schedules. It's going to be without a car for a while. It's more of an annoyance. It's more of an annoyance than anything. But he's allowed to be mad. He's allowed to be frustrated. But what we have to understand is that we're not responsible for that anger. We're not responsible for him being frustrated. Well, you've got some frustration. Yeah, I can understand where that's frustrating. Absolutely. But we don't have to take it on, because guess what? We're not responsible for that. We're not responsible for that. And some might say, some of the women that I talk to, but what he does, Amanda, my husband, what he does, he causes me anxiety. He says this, he does this, yes. One would become anxious if in a situation that caused anxiety. But ultimately, we're responsible for our own anxiety. We're responsible if something happens and I'm angry. Mine's with my children. If one of my children starts crying because he didn't get a toy or whatnot, and they throw a temper tantrum, I have to sit back and say, wow, that's a big emotion. I can get why you're frustrated because you're not getting what you want. I get that. You know, in my head, I'm thinking, not my responsibility, my love. Not my responsibility. I get why you're mad. And it might be easier to do that with our children. It might not be so easy with our husbands or maybe our mothers. As a kid growing up, if your mom's not happy, you almost take that on as, I'm doing something wrong because my mom should be happy and she's not happy. I must be doing something wrong. So then sometimes we become someone maybe we're not supposed to, because we're just trying to fit into, merging into what other people expect of us, so we fulfill their need of being happy. But once you realize that I'm not responsible for anybody else's happiness, I'm only responsible for my own. Do the things that excite you. Do the things that you find passion in. And if you don't have those things anymore, or you've lost those things, which is completely understandable, find new things. What have you always wanted to do? Take dance lessons. Go kayaking. Go paddleboarding. And what we do is we kind of think, well, I can't do those things. That was my mindset. I can't do those things because I have little kids. Which I understand, not being able to do all the things that you want to do when you're in that season of life, because when your kids are young, it's a season. And you're not going and doing all the things that you wanted to do. But you can find little things that still make you happy and do those. And focus on those, because ultimately you're responsible for your own happiness.